Okay, I'll just turn it round to the painting. Actually, after the 11-minute silence, it was quite emotional there for a while. Had the radio on and listening to Nimrod, and yeah, it is something, isn't it? Really, everything that's gone on, to give us the freedom that we have today in lockdown. It just has really brought it home, to me, about how people were, and how they got through the war. And we've had just 40 days of it, and that went on for years. So yeah, a lot of respect there for all our family who went through that. That's my little flag. Got my little flags in the studio there. And yeah, so all decked out. Anyway, let's look at this painting. That's what you're here for, right? Hi Eileen, hi Rebecca. Let's have a look at this guy. Okay, so my husband's actually popped in and he says, oh, you got your lighting all wrong. So there we go. You finally get some good lighting and get a close-up view of that, where I'm at with that. Now, I did post where I started yesterday. Gosh, it's only yesterday. Where I started yesterday. And, of course, that's the still life there. So it's starting to wilt a little bit, but you kind of know what that is. There comes a point really where that is the still life. We're looking at that, but what is most important now is I want to show you perhaps some things about finishing a painting, because very often we get to a stage with a painting and it gets a little bit problematic. We're not quite sure how to put those final touches on things. So what I've done here since you saw me last is I have put in a lot more oil and cold wax through here, and that has really given a lovely waxy surface to the painting. I've come in and rolled wax with dry pigment down here, and so you can see the graininess. That's because of the dry pigment that I've put into the wax with the paint. And I've also just added the white for the flowers. I really don't want to make a meal of the flowers, but I think the white just gives it something fresh and lively. So I've popped that on. That's still a little wet, so I don't want to play around too much with that. But, I'm just looking at it now as a painting to finish up. What I would do at this stage is I would strengthen the darks. So I'm going to use a few, just use a few brush marks really, just to strengthen the darks. If you get to the stage and your painting looks a little pasty, and I've started it here, I've started adding in just a few, and what that does is it just gives, so like here where it's just a little bit dead, just gives me some definition of something that I can bring out the form a little bit. You can see already, even with a few marks, that it just breaks up that space, because at the moment it's just looking a little flat. So I just come in with a few darks. I've left the darks around the egg, so it's picking up a little bit of that. I could put in a little bit. I wanted to just do some definition down there, and like if I wanted to just even alter the composition slightly, I could do that. So these darks at this stage, just not really to overpaint anything, but it's to bring back the drawing, refine that drawing. Here's that lovely turquoise that we had coming through there, so that's still in the painting. That helps our focal point, doesn't it, having that. What do you guys think of the circular format, as a matter of interest? It was a new sort of idea I had. I had these canvases sitting around quite a bit, and I thought, why not a bird's nest? Because it's already that shape, it might work really well. So I'd be curious to see what you think about that. So So just bringing in a few sort of darks, just where I think, oh yeah, this really is pretty much finished. I don't want to do too much to this painting, but I do want to add these final bits which will help it to consolidate. Now at the edge of this painting I'm going to just add a few darks in along here, partly because I want to keep our eye in here. So I am adding those darks just in at the edge, just to keep our eye in the picture plane. Just trying to think how to use that dark too to define a few of the branches, but not go overboard. But here you see it kind of, that dark green kind of stops, so I might want to just bring in a few so that it's not such an abrupt ending. Now I have got a little magenta mixed into green here, so it's kind of a dark grey. Didn't want a saturated colour, just popping in a dark grey. Sometimes even just a dot looks quite good, just a little point of darkness somewhere. Here where I might want to bring out the shape of that leaf. I might use the dark for that, just to give that form. Don't need to do that much more. And just in here. And this is all about, it's not, I wouldn't call this tidying up, but it's really just sharpening. I'm really sharpening the composition. So that was a grey I added, and I talked yesterday that I wanted to add a little bit more of the violet colour. So I've got King's Blue, and a little bit of magenta. So that's what I'm mixing up there, just in here. So I'm going to use a little bit of this highlight of this sort of violet blue. Why? Just in some of the deep shadows, or just like Monet, you will find these violet blues in the shade, and plus it's a good complement for the green, and it might be an ideal place. You see, as soon as I put it down, the painting starts to sing. Absolutely starts to sing. It so wanted this colour. But I don't do this till right at the end. I don't necessarily want this colour getting mucky. So where I put that dark down, you see, I can now put the violet over the top. See, it absolutely looks iridescent almost, doesn't it? It's quite nice sometimes on the edge to have a few things. Got the dark edge on this side. It can vary the way you use your brush too, to create some sort of leaf type movement. So that leaf is nice. I'm going to actually get rid of that dark. So I like the violet next to the green. So I'm thinking of, colour harmonies as well. Violet and green together. Might also apply the paint in little Syrah type dots, just so it doesn't look like one blob, but just break that up into there. I've already got some other violet in here as well, so that's nice. So it looks like broken light. And also we have our sketch, if you remember as well. This was really useful, this high key sketch that's looking mid key now, but we had this violet coming in here too, and it helped to really push out the warmer colours. So let's pop that in next to the white, because actually the white is a big part of this story. It's the May tree that's in bloom at this time, and it's a complement to, has prickles on it though, it does have thorns, but it's a nice complement to the nest. Probably should put that down a bit, but are you still looking at it? Yeah, kinda. There we are. It's a nice complement to the structure of the nest. So that green and that blue are really our friends. It's quite nice to have things in your palette that you know are friends together. Makes for good paintings, you know, when you, yeah, I can use those combinations. So some of these white flowers, I'm going to come in and make them blue. Just going to, almost like there's a bit of shade on them, just so they don't sit out like big white blobs. But use that blue. I'm literally just touching it because it is still wet. Now on the egg, so what I've done with the egg here, I've placed quite a lot of cold wax on this, so it's pushed the egg back into the painting, so it's not sitting out. I'm just popping that blue on there, and just a tiny bit, but it just is to make that really part of the painting. I need some colour down here too on. Now I'm not putting blue down here, I'm just going to put a shade of green on these flowers, just to, because I'm only going to keep that blue area up at the top, and that's looking quite nice. Blue down here, really thick juicy paint. It's got wax in it as well. Just really happy, joyous, juicy paint. Vary the direction of your brush marks as well, so not everything's just straight up and down. I suppose even circles have their equivalent of house painting type marks as well. So you can see at this stage, this has nothing to do with our still life. We are responding to this painting. That's what's become important now, because no one's going to look at the nest, but they are going to look at this. And so I need to make sure that I've got some believable believable space there. Now I'm going to mix up a little bit of a very pale yellow, because they also sit on those flowers. Swivel you around there again to look at the still life. So there is a kind of a yellowish maybe up here. Could be quite useful to have some of that yellow, just to give it a little yeah, Christine, that's quite interesting. Yeah, be interesting to see what happened with this with a square. Very interesting. I would have had more, if I had a square, I would have had more scope for the environment that the nest was in. That's what it would have given me. I might well do it again and just compare the two and see what happens. So I'm mixing up a bit of a very light yellow. Again, partly because the violet is there. So just where we have some of these flowers, just want to pop in a little sharper yellow. Maybe even on that green where it's sitting. It goes to green very quickly anyway. Might even be a leaf. In that bright yellow. Things get a bit muddy. It's quite nice to come in with something like that bright yellow to clean up the area a little. Again, here I might bring in a bit more of that. Maybe I'll make that slightly maybe darker on this side so you can see that. Again, just being very gentle. We're nearly at the end of this, so I don't need to plough in with big heavy marks. Sometimes I do. Like I did with the tree painting, totally just wipe the whole thing off and just leave almost like a ghost of something. But I think this is a different sort of painting. The yellow's just very gentle. Because this is dry, I can drag this yellow across the dry paint. This is dry because it's had the pigment in it overnight, so that is the advantage of adding pigment. On the egg itself, there was a little bit of yolk. I'm just going to add that in as well. Because the egg was slightly broken. The egg needs to feel part of the painting, so I do want to use the same sort of marks if I can. With that. Just touched a bit of blue in there as well. Some white over the top there. Again, come over the contour of the object rather than that way. Just think that the egg is an oval shape. Okay. I'll do for the moment. Branch has fallen off the still life. So the egg now is fitting in with the rest of the painting. Might come in even with a even more violet in a few places, just to. This is even stronger again. Doesn't need a lot of this. As I say, you know, sometimes it's these little variations. When I look at our sketch that we did, you know, we had the violet in around the nest, and that was quite nice. So I'm going to put some of that back in. Just a little. Just so that we bring colour unity to the composition. I'm going to just flick a little paint in the green, sort of citrusy green, just over here. See that? Because that white sits out so strongly, and I want it white, but I don't want it so strong. So I just find that just, you know, giving a little, just mixed it with solvent. There's wax in the paint, so that's all it needs. But it just, again, it just pushes it back a little. I'm going to come in and just pop in a few more of these sort of, which I started doing. But, you know, I can mix up in a branch colour. Can come in. Let's just lay some of these in. Again, it's really about division of space. That's what I'm really looking for. How can I divide up the space in a believable sort of way? So this kind of nice, it's a very light, summery colour palette. So everything has a nice, easy, gentle, even though these marks could end up, well, in the one that I did originally, you know, the marks were very, sort of look quite aggressive. And, you know, these sort of lines can be very aggressive. So I think to try and maybe work with a colour palette that's a little, let's bring, you know, one or two branches across the egg as well to break up the shape a little. And I'm just going to add a tiny touch of, I keep saying a tiny touch and then I end up doing a whole lot, a tiny little bit of pink, because the flowers themselves, the little white flowers, have a little pink. Pick one off for you so you can see. Just have a little pink centre. I think it'd be quite nice to have, you know, quite nice to add that. So just in a few places, and again, it's another colour that really, you know, helps this painting to look very cheery. It's a nice thing to do. all dreary and scratchy looking. So I'm pleased we chose the high key colour value. Can sort of, you know, really down here and do it quite thickly because we haven't added much colour down here, so that could be the actual colour down there. Might be that even one of these branches has pink in it. Doesn't have to be just the flowers. So, you know, where you see a colour or put a colour down, see if you can find another place to do that. And again, we did have that colour in our darker branches as well, so it makes sense that we might find it somewhere. This is really just using your imagination, I guess, at this point. And again, you know, that's a nice thing to add here too. There's a little spray. Now, if you are doing this, make sure you have got good ventilation, because you don't want to be breathing that in. You want to stand back and have a wee look at it and just see how you feel. You know, do you need some more green? I don't think I do, but say, whoops, not do that there. Say I want to strengthen that a little bit, but I think I'm pretty much done here. I want to lose this freshness of colour. Now what I will do to, sometimes what I do just to do the last little bit is, you know, sometimes I just soften off a few places. I get a nice big soft brush like that. And just you know, just places where I don't perhaps want too much texture. I just soften that off a bit. You can see how beautifully it's dried in places with the dry pigment. You know, these things going off to the edge like that, we can put them, we can soften these edges. So we don't, some places we want to have some strong marks, but here, you know, like for the egg, for example, we might decide, you know, we want to push it back a bit. So the blending brush, or this very soft brush, will do that for you. Just give it a little wipe on your cloth or something. It pushes it back a little, not taking it off completely. You want to also, some marks have ended up a bit too directional. It's a nice chance to fix that, for example. Okay. There we have it. That is a summer bouquet nest. And I haven't done one of those before, so that was a lot of fun. And I just really like, you know, when I started adding the pigments, I really started to enjoy this sort of thing in combination with something. I kept that quite simple and made the outside of the image far more textured, and just left that. I find when I made that really textured, it just all became a bit too much. So playing around with, you know, the way you do that is also quite fun. So I hope that's been informative, and that some of you will, you know, would you take that on? Okay, all right. Well, I hope that was an inspirational nest. I expect to see lots of nests coming up in the future. So have a lovely day, and we'll catch up with you later. Okay, bye.